Alright, this video is going to just be covering using color change and effect scroll together to create a dual method preset where you can change colors or effects with the on the fly, and then alternately you can change other colors or effects with the scroll select method. So if you need information on this, it is available in the intro thread for color change. This is for the color change fork, so this won't work on the main OS. This is for the color change fork from SA22C. And what we're going to cover solely is going to be color change, which uses on the fly. So this is the color change, and this is the template for it. And effect scroll, which uses scroll select. So if you take number 1 and number 3 of these styles and put them in to a preset, you actually are able to control colors with one and effects with the other, or any combination you want. So I'm going to just show you how to put that together. Now, since this is in the fork, right now everything would have to be hand-coded. We don't have a tool available as of this recording. Um, so I'm only going to cover the color change and effect scroll for this. There's other videos up on my channel related to building styles in general, as well as combining and doing some hand coding. So this is just one piece of it. I'd recommend watching the other videos as well. All right, so I'm going to do all of my work I'm going to do in just WordPad. You can use text, any kind of text editor, Notepad, etc., Notepad++, whatever you're used to. And what I want to have open is Style Editor. I can't use Style Editor, but the reason for it is just to keep track of the syntax for each of these effects. All right, so now I'm going to go here. So the first thing you want to figure out is, what do I want to control with what? So you've got two methods in front of you. You've got on the fly, which would be our color change effect. And that can do either colors or effects, even though it's called color change. If you put effects in it, it'll change the effects the same way it changes colors. And then we have effect scroll, which uses the scroll select method, and that can, again, do colors or effects. So it's really which one you want to control which. So first things first is the colors are always going to be part of an effect. So you got to do the colors first. So for our purposes here, I'm going to use color change for changing of the colors. You could use effect scroll to change the colors. It's almost identical. You would just change what you're setting up for your open. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to build the colors that I want. Now, if you look here, so this is why I have editor open. Almost all effects have an A and a B, or a first and a second color. So audio flicker, brown noise flicker has an A and a B, hump flicker has an A and a B. What else do we usually use? Pulsing has an A and a B. What's another one? Brown noise flicker, I think I did that, but has A, and B, etc. So most of your effects always have an A and a B. So I want to keep that in mind for my color build. Fire too. Fire has an A and a B, but they call it warm and hot. But same thing. It's got two colors in the definition. So knowing that, I'm going to set up an A and a B list for my color change. All right. So for A, that's your primary. That's going to be what I've set up. Let's set up color change. All right. So we put the opening. And then we need to put together a list of colors. So it can be as many colors as you want, as few. Let's just do a couple basic. This is, again, just for demonstrating. So let's just do 3 to start us off. All right, so I have 3 colors that I'm defining for the A color. So now I want to set up what the color change for B would be. So, and I know these RGB values, so I'm just going to put them in because it's pretty straightforward. You could put colors, whatever you want in here. You just want to always make sure you actually do it correctly. And there is a comma between each one of them. So those are usually the alternates I would do for the red, blue, and green blades, is I usually do the 128 values in RGB for each of those. All right, so this is color change, and you'll see the opening bracket for color change, and then this is the close bracket here for color change. So that's color change for that. This is the opening for color change. This bracket here on the end is the close for color change. The bracket you see here is part of this RGB. So when you use RGBs, keep an eye on that. Sometimes people put that only one bracket in because you lose sight of it. But that's there. So you always set up your colors first. Now, if I wanted to use the effect scroll for this, if I go into this thread, effect scroll is almost identical. It just has the display time. So all I would have done is I would have called this EffectScroll. I would have put the display time in milliseconds and then my list of colors. Setup is going to be the same. It's just I'm choosing this methodology. All right, so now I've got my color change set up. It's only 3 colors, but I've got it set up. It would be however long you want your list to be. All right, now we got to figure out what effects I want. And this is also why I have this open, so I can keep an eye on my syntax. All right, so let's pick, what's typical? I'll do an audio flicker. All right, and I'm going to do this. I've shown this in other videos. Hopefully you've seen them. So I'm going to do my open. I'm going to do my A, and then if you notice, so here, syntax is open, first color A, comma, second color close. So A, comma, B, close. All right. Now let's do a brown noise flicker. Open, A, comma, B, but if you look at the template, there's actually a third variable in here, and it's a number value for the how erratic you want your brown noise to be. So I'm going to, instead of putting close here, I'm going to put a comma, and I'm going to put my value in. So I know this one off the top of my head. You could play around with what you like, and then you put your close. So you always want to get this set up with the open and the close and all the parameters correctly. All right, and then let's do, what's another good one? Let's do pulsing. So pulsing, oops. Just trying to drag this over, get to pulsing. Pulsing is here. So pulsing again has 3. So it has A, B, and then it'll have a numeric value. So let's do pulsing, open, A, comma, B, comma, and then we'll do 1,000 for the pulsing time, and then the close, and we'll do one more. We'll do fire, and it has an A and a B. So style fire, A, comma, B, and then this one closes. Oops, I like to keep it just so easy to see. All right, so the reason I'm doing this now is just to keep track of the syntax needed. So like brown noise flicker has this number that has to be here, and pulsing has this number that has to be here. So I wanted those in place, that way I don't have to worry about them. Now all I'm going to do is I'm just going to drop these color values in. So the way this is going to work is color change being the on-the-fly method. Every time you click it, it's going to advance the next one in the list for everything. So if I'm in audio flicker and I advance, it'll go from red, next one will be blue, next one will be green. It'll also advance the second color at the same time. So it'll use red with this, it'll use blue with this, it'll use green with this. And that's if you think about like an X and a Y axis, that's like the X axis of change, and that's on the fly. What we're going to set up after we get these prepped is the y-axis of change, which will be our effects. So first I want to get these all in place. So I'm going to do this guy. I'm going to copy. You want to make sure you get your full thing and that you wrote this correctly. And then I'm going to paste it, and I'm going to be mindful of my commas. I don't want to wipe out that comma. That's my A there, my A for brown noise, my A for pulsing, and my A for fire. So it moved the commas to the next line. That's fine. Like I said in other videos, line breaks and spaces don't matter, and we're going to reassemble this. So now let's grab our B, again making sure we get the full setup. Copy that, and I'm going to replace B, and I'm going to be mindful particularly of that closing bracket and not get rid of that. And this time I grabbed it a little closer so it didn't. All right, this one has a comma after it. You want to watch that. The comma's still there. Watch this guy, make sure we don't replace our comma. And then watch this one and make sure I do not replace that closing bracket. All right, so now I've got my color change inside of each of these effects. So, and again, every time you do the on-the-fly method, it'll go from the first color to the second color to the third in each of these. So it'll move, it basically, because we're using on-the-fly to do that change, the audio flicker, brown noise, pulsing, and fire won't change. It'll only change the color with on-the-fly. Now we need to set up the scroll method. So first I'm going to recombine all of these. So I'm just getting rid of line breaks, not deleting any commas, any brackets, or any characters. So carefully just back this all together. and this is just to reassemble it, just to make everything a little easier to read. So now what we've got set up here is this is my first effect, this is my second effect, this is my third effect, and this is my fourth effect. Now I need to put these into the EffectScroll. That's the scroll select method. So ColorChange will handle the colors, EffectScroll is going to handle the effects. So let's put this in. And if you look for EffectScroll in here, you'll see EffectScroll has a display time in milliseconds that has to be put in, and that's the first variable. So I want to put EffectScroll open. I usually use 2000 or 2500 milliseconds. You could do whatever you want, but that's a good scroll time I found in testing. All right. And now in EffectScroll, this is the first. So that means by default this will be active. I need to put a comma after each of these individual effects. That way it knows what each of them is in terms of parameters. So we're going to put a comma there. This is my second. Put a comma here. This is my third. I'll put a comma here. And then this is my fourth, so I need to close the EffectScroll. So I need another closing bracket here. All right. And now this is setting up our y-axis change. So when we go in the scroll and select, it's going to go from the audio flicker to the brown noise, to the pulsing, to the fire, and then back around in scroll mode. So it'll, for 2000 milliseconds, it'll show each of these effects in whatever color is current, because we're using the same color change for each one. So each color change advances one in all of them. So that means, so say I just turned the blade on and I press on the fly one time. That will make this a blue audio flicker. Now if I activate EffectScroll, it will go from a blue audio flicker to a blue brown noise flicker. And then after 2000 milliseconds, it'll go to a pulsing blue blade. And then 2000 milliseconds, it'll go to a fire blue blade. Now the scroll will continue until you select that using the method or whatever button you have you set up. While scroll mode is running, you can also still change on the fly. So say it's now running in a fire in blue. If I toggle the on the fly method, it will become a green fire. But in that 2000 milliseconds, it's going to rotate to a green audio flicker. So the effects change with the scrolling, and they will continue to change until you select one. The colors will change with the on-the-fly methodology. So that's how you get the two methods separately. So if you lock in an effect then, so say it's already around to audio flicker in green, and I lock it in, it's going to stay audio flicker green. If I do the on the fly again, it will be back to audio flicker red. And then if I go to EffectScroll again, it would then go from audio flicker red to brown noise and red to pulsing and red to fire and red, and so on and so forth. So that's the setup that allows for those two effects and colors to be different. As I said earlier, if I wanted to do the colors with EffectScroll, you can. You would just set them up here, being EffectScroll 2000 or whatever milliseconds, these colors, and then instead of EffectScroll here for each of these, I would do ColorChange. There is no timing parameter on that, and I would build this out the same way. So you can choose, you can build them either approach. How this works is using those two together, and one controls the y-axis of movement, and one controls the x-axis, and that just means the scroll select is one axis, and the on the fly is the second axis or x-axis. So that's what you need in terms of setting it up. And it could be whatever you want, but it's basically the same way. So now just to finalize this, we'll just get rid of all of our line breaks in here. We had put the commas in, so keep an eye not to delete any of them. And this becomes, there's a couple extra spaces in here. You could tighten this up if you wanted to. It won't make too much of a difference. But this is now set up to run the effects on EffectScroll with a 2000 millisecond display time, and then it will change colors with on the fly for each of these. And that's really all there is to it. So now, if you wanted to add blasts and clash, a lockup, in-out helper, on spark, off spark, end spark, all that other stuff, I do have a separate video on that. So I'm not going to go into that here. So this is not a complete style. So you couldn't drop this into your config right now. This is just what you would use as your base blade. And then you would take this and then you would do all the other, you would wrap all of the other styles around it. And again, I have other videos that cover that. So rather than bog this one down, I'll just refer you to those. But that's basically it. So you're going to take ColorChange and EffectScroll, and you're going to build them out to do both methods in a single preset, and it'll allow you to control two things separately. Um, Usually it would be effects in one and colors in another, but you could set it up to have some group of effects change based off of ColorChange, and you can have a different group of effects change using EffectScroll. You could have a group of colors that changes on ColorChange or on the fly. You could have a group of colors that change on Scroll Select or EffectScroll. So you can use these two together in different combinations to play around and get all kinds of different changing methods in one preset. But this is the typical approach, but it's by no means the only approach. So hopefully this helps you out. If you have any questions, of course, you can always ask. And I do have examples, obviously, in my library. So thanks.